of the greatest morally. I cannot accept this honorary degree on my behalf. I do accept it on behalf of the generation to which I belong, in honor of all those with whom I fought and suffered. We were children when we became homeless, wandering refugees. We then suffered deprivation and even starvation, and we never lost our faith in the future. When we came back to our Galut homes, they were burned, and we had to rebuild them. Then we suffered of violent anti-Semitism and of pogroms. If Ahad Am in his famous article wrote about Avdut b'toch Heirut, he referred to the life of our brethren in Western Europe, in that part of Europe in which I was born and brought up. It was vice versa, Heirut b'toch Avdut. Slavery was around us, but we kept our Jewish pride. We believed in our Jewish heritage. We sanctified it. We demonstrated it. And when it was necessary, we suffered for it. We, the children of my generation, observed Shabbat under any circumstances in the homes of our fathers and mothers. In the intervening years, after the Balfour Declaration and the mandate was given and accepted, we believed that the times of real Mashiachiyut arrived, of return to Zion. We in our generation never said, we will go to Eretz Israel. We always used to say, we shall return to Zion. Zion lived in our hearts. We didn't need persecution in order to wish to go home. The home was in our soul. We loved Eretz Israel before we reached its shores. It was a innermost feeling. We dreamed of it. We worked for it. Then came the days of sadness and bloodshed and pogroms in Eretz Israel itself. As youngsters we used to go day in, day out, rushing to read the news about the tragic events in the land. And we never give up the hope that one day we shall set it free. Then we heard the Besurah of the man who took the flag from the hands of Herzl. Our teacher and master, Zahir Jabotinsky, that there should be a Jewish state, not as a vision for generations to come, but in our own time, and we should be prepared to fight for it and to suffer for it. And so we did. And when the British authorities closed the doors to our land, we embarked upon the so-called illegal Aliyah. To us it was perfectly legal. And we sent tens of thousands of our people in small boats, adventurously so-called, to the shores of Eretz Israel. And there was the Chalutziyut, the wonderful pioneering of all groups without distinction which we honor, going back to the land, healing it, repelling the desert, making the land of Israel green again, collecting instruments for working on the land. Such was the common effort in the 20s and in the 30s. Yes, indeed, we had a warning around us of the volcano around which we live. And we were called to rush, not to lose time, to renew our independence, lest it be too late. It was too late. Second World War broke out. The bulk of the Jewish people in Europe was trapped between Nazi Germany and Communist Russia. They were trapped, persecuted, humiliated. What happened under Nazi tyranny, all of us know, and therefore today is the day of remembrance, when we honor our dead, we remember our heroes, we bow our heads to their heroism and resistance and love and devotion. Kulam Kiddushim, Kulam Giborim. On the other side, there was that degradation. The Jews who saved their lives were accused of being Nazi spies in the thousands and even tens of thousands. They tried to defend themselves, to explain. It was in vain. Then we went through the experience of nocturnal interrogations, night after night, white nights, sleepless nights, in which we are asked to admit that Zionism is a crime, that it is a mockery, that it is not an earnest movement, that it never wanted a Jewish state, that Herzl and Nordau and Jabotinsky and all the philosophers and founding fathers misled us, brought us, the young people, into the ranks of Zionism in order to receive the so-called revolutionary world. And we had to defend the dignity of our people and of our movement of national liberation in a small room in which we sat against an armed man brought up in a doctrine which didn't know any doubts, hostile, finally starting and trying to humiliate your honor as man, as Jew, as Zionist, and you had to defend all of these values in which we believed and brought up. We suffered deportation, but we believe that even from the far north, as it was written, ultimately we shall come back to Eretz Israel, and back we came. Soon afterwards, we learned about the beginning of the destruction and the annihilation of our people. The world knew, we didn't know. For many months it was kept a secret to us. Ultimately we learned. And then we knew, as we heard, day in, day out, night in, night out, with our mind's eyes and ears we heard the trains rolling, the crematoria burning, millions of our people, men, women and children, were destroyed. The world knew whatever is happening and didn't come to the rescue. In those dark days and black nights, when we asked, Me'ayin Yavo Azri, how can we save our people? We took a momentous decision. Even after we lost our master and teacher and father, the bearer of our hope, and we thought in our mourning souls, perhaps the hope itself is lost. We took that momentous decision, namely, this is the turning point in the history of the Jewish people, and therefore we shall fight for our liberation. We shall fight to save our people from the danger of complete and utter destruction. We shall throw our lives which were given to us as a present, because all of us could have been there, and only by divine providence we were not, with our brethren, with our sisters, with our fathers and mothers and our children. And we shall do whatever is humanly possible, with faith in God, to create conditions in which never again a bloodthirsty enemy will be able to raise his hand on a Jewish woman and a Jewish child. We recognized, we ourselves in our own time, with our own hands, souls and hearts, and self-sacrifice, will fight for our liberty. If we do not, nobody will give us our liberty. So we did fight, and all the suffering such a struggle came upon us. Persecution, prison, deportation, concentration camps, the gallows, the bereavement, the orphancy, the tears, the pain in our hearts day and night. We have to withstand all those tests, all those trials. It is indescribable. Should I try today to describe to you our feelings in those days? Our people destroyed, our land subjugated. The Jew cried out, "Let me go to the national home." He was deprived of that right. The boats coming and turned away. What a struggle of the few against the many, and of the weak against the strong. And yet, because we believed in the justice of our cause, and threw into battle all we had, with God's help, Be'ezrat Hashem, we won the day, and we conquered liberty for our people. Yes, indeed, the generation to which I belong proved its Ahabat Zion ve'Eretz Israel, its love for Zion, not in words but in deeds. And it proved its love for liberty in deeds and in sacrifice. These are the two qualities which we developed during the suffering, during the struggle, under all circumstances, both in Eretz Israel and abroad. And today, I want to pay tribute to all the Jewish fighters. Let us honor those who stood in the most sacred barricade of the ghettos and went into the woods and the forest to be the partisans, fighting rather for the human and Jewish dignity than for their own lives. And let us pay tribute to all the fighters of our people, without distinction of group, to the men of the Haganah, of the Palmach, of the Irgun Tzvai Leumi, of the Lechi, of the Machal. This is our generation, suffering, fighting, revolting, believing, never retreating, giving all the self-sacrifice for the great ideal of saving the Jewish people, of bringing them back home to Eretz Israel, and giving the human dignity and liberty. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we reach this day. When we remember what we were and what strength was at our disposal only 30 years ago, and when we know that we still face difficulties in achieving peace because we want real peace, not only for ourselves, but for our children and children's children, that they live, that they be secure, that they continue from generation to generation with the eternity of the Jewish people. When we make that comparison, we do know all the difficulties will be overcome, and we shall march on the path of history for the sake of our land, of our eternal right, and for peace, real peace for our people and for our neighbors with whom we want to live in dignity, in equality of rights, in decency, in cooperation with all our hearts. Worthy professors, friends, students, ladies and gentlemen, such is the generation to which I belong, with which I was brought up, which to a great extent was destroyed. Some of them survived. Such is the generation, the wonderful, learning and learned, loving Israel and Zion, with which we were brought up in Jewish homes, little homes, poor homes, with the light of love brightly in those homes. Erev Shabbat, Shabbat, Yom Tov, Moadim. So much love was in the Jewish family, so much devotion to the Torah, so deep the faith in Elohei Israel, so deep the connection with Torah Israel and Eretz Israel. Now we mourn them, but we have to continue into their footsteps, so that make sure that our enemies can never carry out the design, and the Jewish people and the renewed Jewish state, for which we gave so great sacrifices, live forever and ever. Morai v'Rabotai, the professors, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, in this spirit, not on my behalf because I do not deserve it, but on behalf of this generation of suffering and fighting, of destruction and redemption, Klef ובהרכנת ראש, humbly I do accept the honorary degree which you bestowed on me. And as Prime Minister of Israel, elected with the confidence of our people and Parliament, I do vow to all of you, למען ציון לא אחשה ולמען ירושלים לא אשקוט, so help me God.
Nizkor Elokim Nishmos Achenu B'nai Yisrael Shemasru Nafsham Al Kedushas Hashem. Your Excellency, Kvod Rosh HaMemshalah, Mr. President, Mr. Governor, dear friends, before our convocation is concluded, it is fitting that we mark this day, the 27th of Nisan, the Yom Hashoah v'Hagvura, with a special Yizkor ceremony, the lighting of Neshama Licht, candles of remembrance, for our 6 million Kedoshim martyrs. I call upon His Excellency, the Kvod Rosh HaMemshalah, Prime Minister Begin, Dr. Lamm, Mr. Max Stern, Honorary Chairman of our Board of Trustees, Mr. Eli Borowski, President of the American Federation of Jewish Fighters, camp inmates, and Nazi victims, whose name graces the Eli and Diana Borowski Professorial Chair in Interdisciplinary Holocaust Studies at Yeshiva University, Henry Camioner, President of the Student Organization of Yeshiva, and Sally Roth, President of the Stern College for Women Student Council, both children of survivors, and I ask that the audience please rise and remain standing. The Prime Minister will light the first candle of remembrance. תהיינה נפשותיהם צרורות בצרור החיים. אבינו מלכנו, עשה למען הרוגים על שם קודשך. Please remain standing as we join in silent prayer as Cantor Glasser chants the traditional Keal Molech.
יוצא מנוחנכוינו תחת כנפי השכינה עלוז קדושים מטהרים כזוהר הרוקיע מזהירים נשמות שנהרגו ושנשחטו ושנשרפו ושנטבעו ושנחנקו על קדושת השם שהלכו לעולמם בעבורם שאנחנו לא יודעים את צדקו יד הזיכור רס נשמוסום גן עדן תהי מנוחוסום לא אכן בלא רחמים יסתירם בסייסר כנפו ולעולמים בזכוסם נידחי ישראל ישובו לו אחוזוסם ויצרור ביצרור החיים אס נשמוסם אדוני הוא נחלוסם וינוחו על משכבם בשלום ונאמר אמן.
Please remain standing for the benediction, which will be delivered by Rabbi Michael Kramer of Agas Israel Congregation, Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Avinu Shebashamayim, our Father in heaven. Alele ani bochiyom, eini your dog mine. Ayom Yom Hashoah v'Hagevurah, Chov Zayin Nisan. Yesh b'zichronotenu, Eile shemasru nafsham al kiddush shemecha, b'doreinu u'b'yameinu. Umin hasara hitchadashnu et chayenu, v'kibalnu techiyah matara chadasha l'kochoteinu. Revach v'hatzala ya'amod la'Yehudim, ממקום אחר. בעינינו ראינו הצלות וכוחות חדשות בהקמת מדינה זה 30 שנה, בקישור מדינה וישיבה היום ובעבר, בדבקות ארץ חמדה וגולה, ואם אמת יאבד יום ייוולד בו הדורות באירופה, בכל זאת קרב יום, יום גאולה, יום שבו שומרים הפקד לעירך כל היום וכל הלילה. יהי רצון שנמשיך כולנו בשותפות עם ארץ ותורה, ושתשרה שכינתך על עבדיך, על ראש הממשלה, על ראשי גלותה ומטיבתה ועל כל בני בריתך הזוכרים ולא שוכחים. This day, Yom Hashoah, Holocaust Memorial Day, we grieve and we remember. Our grief turns to joy in the knowledge of and with the presence of the State of Israel and the strong links between it and us, Jews in the diaspora. Bless, O Lord, this event, a symbolic union and reunion of Israel in its land and without. The union and reunion of land, people, and Torah. Grant health and wisdom to the Prime Minister of Israel, Menachem, to the leaders of the diaspora and of its yeshivot, and to all who can, should, and must remember this day. Amen.
Please remain standing for the Hashoah and join in the singing. President, this convocation is now concluded.
Ladies and gentlemen, we request that the audience please remain seats for the recessional.